Chino Hills homes are selling for a median price of just over $1 million right now, according to Redfin. But drive down the hill into Chino, and that same size house runs you about $768,000. So that's a gap of over $233,000 between two cities that basically share a border. So why does one side of that line cost a quarter million more than the other? That's the kind of questions I get asked every week here in the Inland Empire. So my wife Nikki and I, we work resale and new construction deals across Chino and Chino Hills. We see these surprises up close before buyers ever sign anything. Guys, I'm Will and I help families moving into this area every single week. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the real price gap between Chino Hills and the town that sits right next to it, the extra costs that show up after you've already moved in, and the one tax that most buyers buying new construction never see coming. Fact 9. Ask 10 people where the most expensive city in the Inland Empire is, and most of them will guess wrong. So as I mentioned before, Chino Hills has a median sales price of just over $1 million right now, according to Redfin's May 2026 numbers. Chino sits right next door and comes in at $768,000 per Redfin's February 2026 data. That's a gap of over $233,000 between two cities that are just a 10-minute drive apart from each other. So in my experience, that gap, it comes down to when each city was actually built out, right? So Chino Hills developed later, so a bigger share of the housing stock is newer with larger lots and hillside views. Chino has more of the older, more established neighborhoods, and that pulls the median of those home prices down. So here's the misconception when people hear Inland Empire, and they treat it like one price bracket, but it isn't, guys. Zillow has Chino Hills like typical home values at about $914,000, down 2.2% over the past year. That's a completely different budget conversation than if you're talking about Chino, right? So the price isn't the only difference either. The two cities genuinely, they feel different. So Chino Hills gives you widening roads, up to the hills, view lots, and quieter, more suburban pace, right? That's what the lifestyle's like there. Where Chino feels flatter and more established with older neighborhoods sitting next to newer like infill construction, right? So there are some new construction projects there, but both are gonna have new construction going on right now, which is exactly why I get asked about, this comparison so often. So if you're relocating and comparing the Inland Empire to wherever you're coming from, don't just shop the region, right? You gotta shop the city because each one is going to be different, right? And then with this case, a $250,000 is the difference between what you can afford in Chino Hills versus Chino. And that's even before you even look at the taxes or HOA fees, which we'll get into a little later. All right, fact 8. The Inland Empire didn't get cheaper than LA by accident, right? It got cheaper because Chino Hills isn't next to the ocean and it's not downtown LA. So that's the trade you're actually making when you look at this area. So a lot of people don't think it through before they actually move, but if your job is still in LA or Orange County, you're commuting in from, Chino Hills, you're gonna be using the 71, the 91, and eventually the 60 or the 10. Those freeways, they connect the whole area back to the coast and downtown LA. So anyone who's driven them at 7 a.m. knows like the map time and the real time are two completely different things. So here's where people get it all wrong. So they look at the map, they see the distance to downtown LA and assume it's going to be a straight commute right into downtown LA. The freeway doesn't work that way here. Traffic patterns change by the hour. So a manageable drive at 10 a.m. is a completely different experience driving that same distance during rush hour. The 91 corridor in particular has a reputation locally. I've had clients tell me that their 45-minute commute from the listing description turned into well over an hour once they started living in that home. The other piece people miss is that the commute isn't just about work. It's the drive to your old friends, your old doctor, your old routine. And this is if you're relocating from one of the nearby counties, right? So some families adjust to that quickly. Others underestimate how much distance changes daily life until they're a few months in. So if you're relocating for the lower home prices, but keeping your job on the coast, do yourself a favor, drive the actual commute at the actual time you'd be doing it before you buy that home. So don't plan your life around the map distance, plan it around the real drive. It's the single biggest lifestyle adjustment people underestimate when they move to Chino Hills for the price. Fact 7. Chino Hills looks like a homeowner's town until you check the numbers on the newer pockets of the city. So new master plan pockets around the Inland Empire have brought in a real mix of owners and renters according to March 2026 local market reports covering the broader area. That surprises people because a city full of newer construction feels like it should be all owner occupied, right? But newer communities also bring in a lot of renters. Some are new arrivals still deciding whether they want to put down roots in the area. Some are in newer townhome developments that came in alongside the single family construction, right? The misconception is assuming a fast growing area with a lot of new homes automatically means a higher owner occupied rate, but it doesn't. So growth brings both to the city. Here's why that matters if you're relocating to Chino Hills. A mix of renters and owners tends to mean more turnover, right? That's useful if you're buying with any plan to rent the place out down the road. It also means your neighbors aren't all long-term owners like you might expect walking through a brand new subdivision. So some are, some aren't, right? And that's just the reality of a market that's still filling in. It matters for investors too. A real renter population means rental demand is already there, not something you're hoping will show up later down the line. So I tell investor clients to ask about the rental mix in the specific community before assuming it'll, perform a certain way. And that number varies a lot street to street, even with the same city. Fact number 6, homes that used to sell in a couple of weeks are starting to sit, and that includes Chino Hills. So Chino Hills homes average 67 days on market as of a March 2026 local report. And that's a real shift from a couple of years ago. And it changes the conversation for anyone buying right now. So during the boom years out here, homes moved fast and buyers had almost no leverage. But that's not where things stand today. The misconception people carry into this market is that they still need to compete like it's 2021. So offering over asking with no contingencies just to get a house, that urgency doesn't match what the data is showing right now. So if you're relocating, this actually works in your favor. So slower days on market usually mean more room to negotiate. It also means time to think a decision through instead of rushing it, right? You can actually request repairs, ask for closing cost credits, and negotiate on the price. None of that was realistic a few years back when homes were getting multiple offers within days. So it doesn't mean the market's dead. It means it's behaving more normally right now. So that's good news if you're moving here from out of state and don't want to make a big rush decision, especially with one of the biggest purchases of your life. Fact number 5, buying a house that hasn't been built yet doesn't work anything like buying a resale home. And this is where I spend most of my time since new construction has been a big part of my business in Chino and in Chino Hills. And the process trips people up constantly, especially relocators who've only ever bought resale homes, right? So with a resale, you negotiate price, you write contingencies, you go back and forth. With new construction, the builder usually sets the price and there's very little room to move it, right? So what you can negotiate are the incentives, upgrades, closing cost credits, sometimes a rate buy down if you use the builder's preferred lender. The misconception is thinking that you don't need your own agent because you're just walking into a sales office, but You do need one, guys. Bringing your own agent typically costs you nothing extra because the builder pays the commission either way, and having someone in your corner who isn't working for the builder matters more than people actually realize. So you find that out the first time something goes wrong. If you're relocating and looking at new construction in Chino and Chino Hills, understand the deposit structure before you sign anything, guys. Some builders require a bigger upfront deposit than a resale would. It's often non-refundable past a certain point, so know that before you fall in love with any of these floor plans out there, guys. And again, everything I just walked you through on new construction is really just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's just the surface. The numbers that actually change your monthly payment in Chino Hills are actually taxes, HOA dues, and insurance. So get one of those wrong and your real payment lands several $100s a month higher than the listing price led you to believe it would. So if you would, go ahead and download our Inland Empire Relocation Guide, guys. The link is below in the description, but it's gonna break down the effective tax rates, the typical HOA ranges, and the insurance costs that our clients actually pay in this area. Number 4, your insurance bill isn't the same here as it was wherever you're moving from. So homeowners across the Inland Empire are commonly paying somewhere between 80 and 120 bucks a month for coverage, according to a 2026 local market report. That's an ongoing cost, guys, on top of your mortgage payments. It's not one that people budget for when they're running the numbers from, especially if they're coming from out of state. So here's the misconception. People assume homeowners insurance is homeowners insurance, right? So they carry over whatever number they were paying in their old state. California isn't the same market, so fire risk, rebuild costs, and insurers pulling back have all pushed premiums up statewide. That shows up even in areas like Chino Hills that aren't considered high fire risks. And, you know, I bring this up with every single client. It's easy to build a budget around the mortgage and tax rate and forget insurance is its own monthly line item, right? That can actually move. So I've also had clients assume a brand new home means cheaper insurance than an older resale home. And sometimes it is, since new construction meets current fire and building codes, but it's not guaranteed every time. So don't assume it without pricing out the specific address. So if you're relocating, get an actual insurance quote on the exact address before you go into escrow. So not a rough estimate based on square footage. It's a 5-minute phone call that can save you from a payment surprise down the line. All right, fact 3. California just approved one of the biggest insurance rate hikes homeowners have seen in years, guys. So the California Department of Insurance approved a 29.1% average rate increase on Fair Plan policy statewide effective October 15, 2026, according to a June 2026 report. A separate report from a local news broadcaster confirms the new rate applies to all new and renewal business starting that date. So this isn't just a Chino Hills issue, guys. Insurance rates are set like at the state level, so it hits every homeowner in California, including buyers across the Inland Empire. The misconception is thinking this only affects homes in fire-prone hillside areas. It doesn't. This increase touches new and renewal policies broadly, right? So everybody can get affected by this. A buyer closing in Chino Hills after October 15, 2026 is walking into a different insurance market than someone who closed a year earlier, right? Even buyers who aren't on the FAIR plan should pay attention. I know I'm going to be paying attention, right? So a statewide increase this size tends to push standard market premiums up too, as insurers adjust their own pricing around it. So don't assume you're insulated just because you're not planning to use the FAIR plan, right? So if you're buying in the next several months, get your insurance quote locked in early. Ask your lender and your insurance agent directly whether the quote reflects pre or post October rates, right? So that's going to be one question that can change your monthly payment more than people expect. So it's exactly the kind of thing that gets missed when you're managing a move, especially from out of state. Fact number 2, your mortgage payment is not your only bill if you buy in a newer community here. So HOA fees in Chino and Chino Hills master plan communities commonly run between $200 and $400 a month, according to March 2026 Local Living Guide. That's a real number. So every month on top of your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So here's what surprises people. They see a monthly payment estimate online that only includes the mortgage, and they build their whole budget around it. Then the HOA disclosure shows up, and they need another $200 to $400 a month just to live in that particular community. So that fee isn't random, guys. It usually covers like the common areas, landscaping, community amenities like parks or pools, and sometimes even front yard maintenance depending on the development. Some communities charge more if they have gated access or larger shared facilities that you'll be using. So before you write an offer on anything in a new construction community, ask for 2 documents, okay? So those documents are gonna be 1, the CC&Rs, which spell out the rules, and the reserve study, which tells you how well funded the HOA actually is. So a poorly funded HOA can hit you with what's called a special assessment later. Add the real HOA numbers to your budget before you fall in love with the floor plan, not after. All right, fact 1. This is the one that catches almost every new construction buyer off guard in Chino and Chino Hills, and it's the reason I bring it up on nearly every call with every client. So most people know California caps property taxes around 1% to 1.25%, right, under Prop 13. What they don't know is that a lot of new construction communities across the Inland Empire sit on top of something called a Melrose tax, right? So it's also called a CFD, short for Community Facilities District. In parts of Chino Hills, the effective rate, including Melrose and CFD assessments, can run about 1.9 to 2.2%, according to a May 2026 report covering new construction districts in the area. That's nearly double the base rate of a lot of what buyers assume they're walking into, right? But here's why, guys. So Melrose is a separate special tax that pays for the infrastructure in new development. So that's going to be the roads, the sewer lines, schools, parks. It's set by the formation documents of that specific district, and it's not subject to the Prop 13 cap. So annual bills can run anywhere from around $360 in smaller, older districts to over $10,000 in larger, newer developments. And most buyers in active districts pay somewhere between $1,200 and $6,000 per year, according to an April 2026 report. The misconception is assuming your property tax bill is just the sales price times 1.25%. In a Melrose community, it's not. So ask for the exact CFD disclosure before you write an offer, not after you're already in escrow on that new home, because that number changes your real monthly payment more than almost anything we've covered on this video today. So guys, that extra tax is exactly the kind of thing that doesn't show up until you're already deep into escrow on a home in Chino or Chino Hills. And I've watched buyers find out their Melrose bill after they've already picked out the paint colors and, appliances and upgrades for their home. One client's effective rate came in at nearly double what they budgeted. So, and by then, they were attached to the floor plan and the lot, and walking away would cost them far more than the tax ever would have. So if you guys are looking to purchase in Chino Hills or anywhere in the Inland Empire, do me a favor, go ahead and give me a call, guys, or shoot me a text at 909-359-9018 before you consider putting in an offer. I'll pull the exact effective tax rate, the HOA numbers for that specific address, so nothing is hiding in the fine print once you're under contract. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you found this video helpful, you might want to check out, that video right there next. So we'll catch you on the next one.